I want to talk for a second about low points, because I think people never appreciate how bad they really are. And I think it's always reassuring to hear that even Mark Zuckerberg went through some serious low points and came out okay. So can you tell us about some of the hardest parts in the early history of Facebook?
Yeah, I think one of the hardest parts for me was actually when Yahoo offered to buy the company for a lot of money. Because up until that point, that was this turning point in the company, where before that every day we'd just come in and kind of do what we thought was the right next thing to do, right? We'd open to more schools, we opened to high school and opened beyond schools, and launched more photos, because that's what it seemed like the next thing that we needed to do to help people express themselves and understand more what was going on around them. But then, Yahoo came in with this really meaningful offer, right? I mean, $1 billion for.
And this was how far into the company?
It was a couple of years in,
okay.
Right? And we had 10 million people using the product at the time, right? So it wasn't as if it were obvious that we were going to succeed far beyond that. And that was the first point where we really had to look at the future and say, wow, is what we're going to build going to actually be so much more meaningful for this? And, that caused a lot of interesting conversations in the company and with our investors. And, at the end of that, Dustin and I just decided, no, we think that we can actually go connect more than just the 10 million people who are in schools. We can go beyond that and have this really be a successful thing. And we just had to go for it. But that was really stressful, because a lot of people really thought that we should sell the company. And for a lot of folks who joined a startup, I feel like at that point I hadn't been very good about communicating that we were trying to go for this mission.
Yeah.
We just showed up every day and just kind of did what we thought was the right next thing to do. So for a lot of the folks who joined early on, they weren't really aligned with me, right? For them, they joined, and being able to sell a company for $1 billion after a couple of years was like a home run, right? And it is a home run, right? Oh. And that's, I think that's I get that, but I think that the fact that I didn't communicate very well about what we were trying to do caused this huge tension. And the part that was painful wasn't turning down the offer. It was the fact that after that, huge amounts of the company quit because they didn't believe in what we were doing. Right? I mean, if you look at the management team that we had,
did that whole management team leave?
The whole management team was gone within about a year after.
Welcome to How to Build the Future. Today our guest is Mark Zuckerberg. Mark, you've built one of the most influential companies in the history of the world, so we are especially excited that you are here.
I'm not sure where to go from there.
Why don't we start with just the early days of Facebook? Tell us what it was like when you started it.
Sure. So for me, the thing that I was really fascinated by, and always have been, is people, right, and how people work. When I was in college, I studied psychology and computer science. And, one of the things that you learn when you study psychology is that there are all these parts of the brain which are geared just towards understanding people, right? Understanding language, how to communicate with each other, understanding facial expressions, emotions, processing. Yet when I looked out at the internet, right, in 2004, which is when I was getting started, you can find almost anything else that you wanted, right? You could find news, movies, music, reference materials. But the thing that mattered the most to people, which was other people and like understanding what's going on with them, just wasn't there, right? And I think what was going on was that all that other content was just out there, able to be indexed by, search engines and other services. Yeah. But in order to understand what's going on with people, you needed to build tools that made it so that they could express what was going on with themselves. I wanted to figure out what courses to take, so I built this little website, Course Match, that that just made it so that you could enter what courses you were taking, and you could click on them and see who else was in them, and it did all these correlations. So it told you people who took this course were likely to enjoy this course too. And the thing that just struck me from the beginning is, people would just spend hours clicking through here are the courses that people are taking, and wow, isn't it interesting that this person is interested in these things? And it was just text, right? There's nothing that was like super interesting there, but that just struck me as, people have this deep thirst to understand what's going on with those around them. And, there were probably 10 other things like that I built when I was at Harvard before I actually got around to building the first version of Facebook that kind of added a lot of these things together.